I'm 39 years total, so about 29 years I've worked in Oregon. And let's see, I've always been a 4-H agent. I love working directly with the public, and so never wanted to climb the ladder. And I think that's it. Right? Did I answer the questions?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Janine Woods, the Associate Extension Administrator for Virginia Cooperative Extension at Virginia State University. I have been here for years now. Prior to that, I was at North Carolina A&T, and prior to that, I was with IFAS. So I am an ag economist by training, but an extension by heart.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm Zareen Bajwa. I'm from New York. And I work with Cornell Cooperative Extension. I've been with them for nearly 20 years. My background is in public health. Prior to joining Extension, I worked for the UN in the international area, working in different developing countries. So that's the experience I bring to the table.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Doug Swanson. I came to the University of Missouri Extension in 2017 and had 2 other careers. The most recent where it's been over a quarter of a century working with labor unions and running some of them. And my role with the Extension, I have a visual aid. My business card, I'm a field specialist in labor and workforce development with Extension, but I also coordinate the labor study certificate program for University of Missouri St. Louis. So there, I'm part of the College of Arts and Science with UPSO, where I'm a member of the faculty for both the political science and the history departments. And then on the extension side, I'm in the St. Louis County office, but I work in the St. Louis, the urban east region of extension. So like when we have things like COVID going on, I am one of the best informed people because everybody's talking. Or what they think. But my org chart will do all that for you.
Well, thank you for the intros. And so you can see that what we try to do with the panel is look at different regions of the nation, so that we get some specific feedback on some of the work that they do in their states. And so what we're going to do is pose a question, and we'll ask each one of them to give some feedback that directly impacts the work that they do in their state and or county. So the first question to the panel is what types of organizations do you partner with in urban areas? And how do these partnerships differ from those in rural communities? So whomever would like to go first, we'll go from there.
I'll go ahead.
Okay,
I'm gonna start with the second part first, if I could. How do they
Yes.
differ from I've worked both in rural communities and I've worked in urban settings as well. And in urban communities, establishing partners, there aren't many, but it's fairly easy. And everybody kind of knows everybody, and you know, you're in the same small realm. When you get in an urban situation, there are a lot of potential partners, an awful lot of potential partners. Sometimes you don't always know who they are. You gotta do some research to figure out who those partners are. But there's also a lot of competition for those partners. So you have to have something that you're bringing to the table. And it has to be, you know, you have to look for common goals and that kind of thing. But you've got to sell yourself. And in your organization, and it's not an easy thing to do.
So to piggyback on what you were saying, those were kind of the notes that I had made. Number one, that we try an extension to be all things to all people. And it's a lot easier to do that in a rural setting, but it's impossible to do that in the urban setting. It's not easy anywhere, let me say that, but it's especially more difficult in those urban settings. You know, you mentioned competition. There is a lot more competition for those partners. And I think the key is that within extension, finding what complements the work that's being done by those other agencies and what sets us apart so that we are bringing something to the table, but not necessarily competing for for that audience. So for example, we work with a lot of healthcare agencies and the local hospital systems, and they all have their own individual diabetes education program. Well, we have a cooking with diabetes program. So I'm not gonna pitch our intro to diabetes program to them because they already have their own. But what I can do is we can come in and offer the next step. So that applicable knowledge and those skills that will kind of take their program to the next level. So not competing, but partnering and making sure that everybody gets something out of it.
I would say for us, not being the lead. I think in our rural areas, it is extremely easy for us to be the lead and be the one gathering all of the folks, and kind of pushing the charge. And in the urban areas, it's typically someone else. And it's okay for us to take, somewhat of a backseat, not, to leave our logos and things out because branding matters. And I will always advocate for that. But, to Courtney's point about, adding something else, to the table. So for example, we partner with the Boys and Girls Club. They're at the YMCA. They're the lead for their program because those are the kids that come to their program, but then they now bring their kids to us and we do additional programming with them. So, we have enhanced the program that they already have by adding these additional pieces to it.
What you sent to that programming side here, that's good, that'll be a good segue.
So, Long Island, New York is very metro, there's 8 million, more than 8 million plus people there. Very diverse and multiple languages spoken. So our staff also has all those qualities because they're from the community. So you have a choice, like mostly urban is only a very small part of Long Island, New York is very rural. The rest of it is very urban. So the need for us to make multiple partners is always ongoing. And we make partners not just in one category, but in multiple categories, from faith-based, different interfaith, different faiths, because there are multiple faiths there. Then we go on to making health, which are bigger and affiliated with universities locally. Then there is the level of agencies that are all over the place throughout the state that are like Boys and Girls or Family Service League, United Way and all. So, we have a great choice to make, but you also have a lot of work to do to develop those partnerships. So it's not just like that you walk in and make, so that's a whole thing by itself, how to develop that partnership, but you have a range that you can choose from. Because it's based on your need, because our programs are in a wide range. We offer from marine to agriculture, to 4-H, to nutrition and health. So our programming under that is again a whole multiple complex of programming. So we nurture those relationships. We have one partnership in marine. We'll see how it can be transferred to nutrition and health or agriculture and so on and so forth. So that's how we cultivate and grow those partnerships.
The greatest challenge I see is the finding your lane and resource allocation. So something program as simple as like financial literacy. In some of the rural communities, the extension is the only one who could put out a program like that, or would put out a program like that. In St. Louis, we've got 12, 13 colleges and universities in St. Louis alone. Plus you have the YMCA, the YWCA, Boys and Girls Club, on and on, a lot of other community partners who do programming that would, extension would do outside that urban environment. So what we do in the urban environment, it doesn't make sense, especially when, probably like your extensions as well, we're 25% smaller than we were 25 years ago. So we don't have the staff we once had. So we can't keep propping up programs that others are doing in the urban space, even though we need those programs in the rural space. So it's really difficult to find that lane and carve out space for resources, staff time to do that program when the dynamic may be changing, because if it's a popular program, guess what? St. Louis Community College is a great program for it. So we'll do it for a year or two, then they'll go, hey, you're competing with us. That's the way to stand out.
So just to follow up with some of the examples that were given, I know you talked about the importance of those partners, the partnerships, but kind of give the group some ideas of some of those partners that you have worked with. So we mentioned some youth serving organizations, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, there was some help, but give some specific on some groups that they could probably potentially go back and work with in their specific areas.
You know, I wouldn't leave out county government. I've partnered with different departments in county government to bring solar power to the county, to homes in the county. And, you know, they had the funding, the county had grant funding. What they didn't have though was the network of people that they needed in order to put together a ad hoc committee that would manage the whole program and had the outreach capacity. And so they, I worked with them, and as a product of that, not only were we really successful in bringing solar to many homes and businesses, but on top of that, after my work with them, they then had other grants, and I would easily get huge chunks of these other grants from them without doing any work other than writing up a one-page proposal for them of how I was going to spend that money. What also happened as a way of that, of engaging other partners, is once you start working with partners, other people start coming to you because word gets out that you're a great partner and you're somebody that they want to work with, and you have these assets to offer. So that helps out a lot. But besides the county, I've partnered with a lot of Latinx organizations. And that's because I do outreach with the Latinx audience. If you look at me, that would be very difficult for me to do unless I had those partnerships. So I partner with like Hacienda CDC. They provide low-income housing to Latinx families in our community. And so they provide me an audience, a place to meet. Plus, they provide me some bilingual translation, and they're a good one. I've also partnered with a HINT group. HINT stands for Hispanic Interagency Networking Team. And again, it's a lot of nonprofit government agencies that are trying to reach this audience. And so they put on a lot of training. I meet a lot of other people, including a lot of Latinx adults that are doing work that help me out. So I've got all these people I can call on to help with programming. And then there are other programs, even in the schools. The schools, I work with schools in their transportation system to provide busing for my programs for a Latinx audience that doesn't have transportation. And they give me their school rate rather than me having to go out and pay a much higher rate for busing. So there's all different kinds of little partnerships that you can do. And I'm saying, hey, I'm serving your audience, your students. These are kids that go to your school, and I'm enriching their knowledge through STEM programs, through all kinds of leadership programs, all different kinds of experiences. So it's really, there's nobody who cannot be a partner. And like you said, you've got to be willing to share the limelight with those folks. But you start doing that, and before you know it, they're coming to you and want to partner with you. And you get to pick and choose who you can partner with.
Anyone else?
I would add that, the unusual suspects, right? So, Department of Commerce, the state EPA folks. There are some interesting entities within our states that aren't always in the public eye, right? And especially agencies that we would not traditionally move towards, I would say are the best partners, especially in our more urban communities, because no one ever really asked them to partner with them. And so then when you offer them opportunities to do community engagement, because that's how they're gonna word what it is that they're doing with you, they're not only willing to do the community engagement and partner with you, but even fund a lot of the projects and things for you. Best example I can give, the Department of Commerce received almost $1 billion in broadband infrastructure money, and a part of that money was to educate the community on how to access broadband, to be able to provide certain infrastructure pieces for it. So a lot of the smaller scale urban areas were able to get Wi-Fi networks and things like that built in their areas because they had the money, they just didn't have the partners and the connectors. So, I mean, there's all types of ways to partner with the people that you think might not, is not normally in the spotlight.
So I would add to that, as a follow-up is that you always look for out of the box.
Yeah.
Like nobody thinks of seniors, the Office of the
Yes.
Aging as a partnership.
Yes.
And that's a very right, they have that experience and they're there. So you can partner with them for some of your parenting programs, as parenting as a second time around for those kind of programs, or how can they help as being role models for the for youth program. So you can involve, it is a very good resource. Then farmers market, which are seasonal, how do you pair up with them, bring the youth, because the Department of Labor gives these summer jobs to high school students to do. So how can you involve them to have some markets, especially like in Boys and Girls Clubs or in other places where these youth can run these farmers markets under the federation or under whatever the slightly bigger group is, and give them a summer job. So that becomes your partner year after year because they've seen the success, because they need help, they can't do it on their own. So you give that technical support and help to make it happen, and then other partners can play and make it a success. So think of things that are not always direct, but indirect also, that you can involve a partner in and bring them in. So those are all good. There are both and even the legislators, if you have a relationship with your local county legislator or state senator, they have funds throughout the year, small amount, it may not be big, 50,000 or something, or 10,000. So we have this program, Fruit and Veggie RX, which is under the nutrition program. So you can give those coupons for either a small retail that is next to the health center where you're having the nutrition classes, so people can go and buy the healthy vegetables, or you can do it with a farmer's market during the season. We are in the Northeast, so we only have the summer season and we don't have all year long. But still, there are great partnerships to be built on those kind of things. So if that legislator sees that their money has gone a long way, plus they're getting recognition for that, they will come back because they like Cornell, they trust that name in extension, that we're doing something that is evidence-based and good research. So they'll invest in you. So year after year, they'll come back and work with you. Same with the schools, all these things, you do it once or twice and you earn your good name, and then you build on it for other times.
I don't partner as much as I collaborate. And the nuance is significant for me. When I ask people to partner with me, they gotta go back to the boss and get permission. I ask them to collaborate with me, they go, on what? And so I collaborate with that partner. And, you know, I'll illustrate that by explaining this button says recovery friendly, that's my signature program. We created a recovery friendly workplace initiative in Missouri. That came out of somebody from a labor union, asked about who. A labor union said, what's the extension doing about opioids impact on the workforce? And I've been with the university for less than six months. I said, haven't a clue. And so we started looking into it. And long story short, I finally got the blessings that we did our academic research and to start working on this. We started planning, it was gonna be a 4-hour conference, it turned out to be a 2-day conference, and we had enough ideas for 2 more conferences. We actually had the second conference planned, COVID hit, and that's when this grant took off, and we had that conference. But the 2-day conference was put together by a planning committee that got to 24 people. We had physicians from the College of Medicine, a health insurance executive, EMS, law enforcement, NGOs, you know, who are first line, on dealing with this. I can't remember all, you know, we had, by this time we had 3 labor unions involved. We had a newspaper involved, an industry, a newspaper involved. So we built this community team that planned the conference. That conference turned out to be highly successful. And we were asked to plan some 1-day conferences, so it became portable. That led to the grant funding, which was a Rotary grant, Rural Technical Assistance Grant, where we ultimately developed a program that we're still working with now, and we're exporting to other states. But this is all possible not because of what we did, but because who we brought into the room to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with listening. Take the time to listen. Don't always be there to speak.
So I agree with everything in my list of partners. There's one I want to add that's been really helpful for us. Is partnering with other universities. We in Texas are very proud. We're very proud. Aggies are very proud of Aggies, and we're very proud of that Texas A&M University name. But we have the opportunity to partner with other universities and other community colleges to offer programs with their clientele, but also our partnership with them in helping them to develop their students into the future workforce. We have interns come through our office, and it's a great opportunity, whether they, dietetic interns come through, and whether they decide to come to work for Extension or not, they at least know about us, and they'll take that message out into the world wherever they go. They're also some of the most motivated volunteers, and they're not gonna say if you want to try something new, you get those college students to go into a school and teach a new program. They're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid to go in and try something new. They're not afraid to get out of their comfort zone. And it's been a very fruitful partnership in working with some of those universities and bringing up those students.
So that's a good segue to the next question related to, now that we have an idea and some examples of those partners that we actually worked with. Tell us a little bit more about how you leverage those partnerships to implement innovative programs in the spaces that you all work in. I remember yesterday, your conversation around you don't have agents.
That's correct.
I was very enthused by that conversation. So by sharing how you were
We out here
trained.
working hard.
So share that.
So we don't have agents that belong to Virginia State University. All of our agents in Virginia are at Virginia Tech. And so what it has done is it has really enforced us having one system, right? But with that, there are some specialty things that we need, particularly in some of our audiences. And so that has forced us to rethink what programs look like for us. And so 2014 or 15, I'm blanking on the actual year, the GFRAS group wrote a piece about the new extensionists. And in that conversation was about the role of extension and do we always have to be the educator? And the answer is no. Sometimes we just have to be the facilitator, and that is okay. And so for us, we have learned how to pivot from just being the educator or being the trainer with our agents to now our agents are our partners in programming from a specialist or associate specialist state programming team with our agents now collectively coming in and saying, how do we facilitate an experience? How do we facilitate educational exchange? And how do we provide those opportunities? And so by that, you know, we're in the works of hosting the Virginia Farmers Market Conference. That's not our bread and butter. I only got one specialist that's working on it, but you know what? She partnered with Virginia Farmers Market Association. We are helping to organize and facilitate this, you know, this conference across the actual region. It actually ended up going beyond Virginia, but in order to provide the space and grace to bring enough people in together to have an educational exchange. And then being able to take not just that one session, but to then use that to create action items for our partners to be able to then go back out and do some things and then bring us back together again. That's how we're looking to maneuver, you know, towards the future, which is not the traditional model, and that is okay as well.
Yes. We have a question back. Yes.
You know, question Olivia is saying is so interesting, because as a role, an extension role, you're using facilitator, coordinator. Okay, so in partnership
Yes,
and collaborator.
that is correct.
Okay, so when you talk about extension roles, a
Mhm.
facilitator is different than a coordinator.
Correct.
I do exactly what you do, but I am coordinating.
Mhm.
I'm not facilitating, because facilitating, you're standing up front,
Yes.
facilitating conversation.
Yeah.
So I know, so I was just wondering, are you using the words interchangeably?
No, we do both. We do
Okay.
both. But when I say facilitate, I mean from the space of being able to bring people in. Sometimes we do actually do the facilitation part of the actual meeting itself. And sometimes it is just coordinating everyone and getting everyone together. It kind of depends on what program I'm specifically talking about. So for example, we coordinated the Aquaponics Association in the state. And then they took off and ran with it. And they're the ones responsible for it, and we just show up and support it, you know, when they're having their annual meetings. Versus something like the farmer's market one, where we're the ones actually facilitating and putting all the pieces together. And we're the ones helping to lead, you know, programmatically. But it's not just us by ourselves, it's us and our partners together, and we're just providing the space for us to be able to come together.
No, I understand, there's that facilitating or coordinating, because, right, you're facilitating, but
Yes.
you're coordinating all the pieces,
Yes.
bringing all the moving parts,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I think that, I understand as the educator, and then we're facilitating that everyone's coming together, but that's still coordinating all those different parts
Yes.
to come around the table for one common goal.
Yes, that is correct, which, the traditional model is that we are just educators in what we do, and that's not who we've always been, but that is the language that we have generally used. And as we are moving forward, we are being intentional about saying that we're not just educators, but we are educators, facilitators, etc.
And I was just saying one thing, and I'm go.
No.
Because as a new extension educator, I looked at the research, and one of the journal articles through extension talked about the role of an extension, you know, extension educator, and it had like educator, facilitator, coordinator. So then when you're trying to write up your report, it's like, okay, did I facilitate this? Am I a coordinator, like, or did I just provide technical assistance?
Sometimes you're, sometimes you're all of that.
I know, so it's not be so confusing, right? It's like, okay, what is my role in this? And then if what I may use may not be familiar to what they're used to.
That is
You know,
correct.
My colleagues,
That is correct.
yeah.
And
Okay.
language definitely matters
Yeah.
in certain audiences.
Right.
So like, we don't typically in extension use the term academics because that's a big taboo and a no-no when it comes to our funds, and so you don't want to do those things. However, we do offer non-formal education to the community. And so therefore, if part of that community includes your students that want to come and participate in our programming, then that is exactly what those students will do. So, we have to be clear about, kind of who our stakeholders are at the time, who our partners are at the time, who our collaborators to this point, and the language and things that they use, and then being clear in how we communicate with them, about who we are and what we can and cannot.
So sometimes, like what you're saying, Robin, is also that you have to focus what is the center. The center is the learner centered dialogue approach that we have all come to accept, that is the way. We are not the know it and be it all. I'm not teaching, I'm not talking down to you. We're having a dialogue. So all educational is based on that dialogue approach where it's learner. So you might be teaching me something as well as I am giving some information to you as well, when it comes to actually the education exchange. So we've shifted from that old model of calling it a lecture or talking down to more a partnership or a sitting at equals on the table. And often, I'll give you a couple of examples. In some of like SNAP, and I know some of you might be familiar, has a part of it which is called policy system and environmental change. So part of that USDA requires that you do some change in the environment. So a couple of our initiatives are, one is healthy corner stores. So who is the person who is going to make the connection with the corner store? Not me. I'm not going because I'm not part of that community. The people in the community are not going to accept me. I may do a lot of talking, but the person, my educators, my people on the ground are belonging to the community, speak the language. If there is a Hispanic store owner, there is an Arabic store owner, or whatever, they're speaking that Creole, Spanish, that language, they belong to the community. They can relate, they can go say, hi, we have this initiative, I'm from Cornell. So, that person will have some kind of a dialogue. Whereas my information may sound a little more alien, I'm coming and I have this position, I'm who and talking to them. Whereas I was only successful once in my life for a laundromat because I speak Arabic and the owner was a Palestinian. So when I went to him, we thought he was Hispanic. So I took a Spanish speaking educator with me and I'm standing and trying to recruit him, talking on developing that partnership, and he suddenly turned to me and said something, and I realized he speaks Arabic, so I could relate and make it successful. So that's my only big success. So, but I mean, like it's also you have to rely to develop those partnerships with the community for your people who are from that community, your staff who belong. They are walking around and shopping, they're playing, the children are going to that whatever, that's how it will become successful.
Question.
All right, so yeah, I'm gonna make a statement, then ask a question. So I want to say I appreciate you using the word collaboration versus partnership, because when you use that term partnership, it's a red flag for administrators and legal, because it's like what we're partnering to do. Can we partner with this? Yes, so I do like that. I do like that term, and I've used that. My question for you, because you're in a unique situation where you don't have educators. And having to be the coordinator, the facilitator, the connector, whatever it is. What strategies do you use to evaluate that effort? Because I think that we weigh how we evaluate our staff, our agents, versus you taught the program, what was the long-term impact, but what was the impact of bringing these people together, whether it's breaking bread together, a meeting? What unique ways do you measure that in?
So that was the third question?
Okay. Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I want to give my agents credit. I value what they do, because I started as an agent And you know, sometimes like sitting down and eating with the business owner saying, okay, can you feed my kids lunch during this camp? Because no formal agreement, it should. Right, and we're doing that right now with some of our other programs, so I really wanna give my agents credit, and I don't necessarily see that in how we evaluate.
So evaluation is the main area that I genuinely believe hurts us more than helps us. And when I say that, I mean from the perspective of, even though we have had a latitude of professional development opportunities for evaluation, skill sets being built, we are terrible at really evaluating and assigning metrics that are of genuine value. In part because we typically write grants and program plans, et cetera, without genuinely thinking about the evaluation piece until the back end. And then most of us have systems that have been in place for a very long time. And so you're still evaluating on old metrics that doesn't really lend itself to the lane that we are currently in. And so there's a number of issues with evaluation. Then there's a piece of if your educators, agents, et cetera, are part of the university's tenure and promotion scale system, whatever that looks like, you know, in your area, that also causes additional problems because that's not based off of what we actually do, that's based off an academic mindset of what those people do and not what we actually do. And heaven help the beautiful people at our universities, but they never really understand what we actually do in extension as a whole. And sometimes they even think we're party planners. So, you know, I think when you're thinking about evaluation, you have to have all that into context. Now, to answer your actual question, we have one system that has like a set of metrics and it asks, you know, how many people did you do here? What did you do here? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? That is only one piece of my evaluation system. And so I'm asking for additional things. I'm looking, did you go back and talk to your people? Did you actually do a real program evaluation? Because if you are telling me on your impact report that, you know, you did, you know, 3 sessions, you brought in 60 people, and, you know, 1 or 2 of those people said that they enjoyed themselves, that's not an impact for me. What I am looking for is, you had your session in January. Did you go back and ask about a behavior change or attitude change 6 months from now? Did you go back and ask those questions a year from now? And if the answer is no, then you're probably most likely out of satisfactory because you've done the bare minimum. The end. If you have worked with your people, if you've looked for additional things, if you've gone above and beyond, that's a different story, and those things weigh more. And so I'm more from a weighted mindset than, you know, kind of a, hey, you did all of these things, check mark, check mark, check mark, and kind of go from there. I also look at materials created. So, and I'm not talking about journal publications. I'm talking, not even Joe. I love Joe, that ain't what I'm talking about either. I'm looking for end user materials. Did you create videos? Did you create some type of skill set chart that shows exactly how to do something? Those are the things that I'm looking for from my team. And if you've done those things, then that tells me that you seriously consider the real impact for these people when they leave you. Even when it comes to like our partnerships and things, you know, what was the benefit to the partner is one of the questions that I ask. What is the benefit to us from the partner? You know, and if there isn't a real exchange, then what was the purpose of really partnering in the first place? If we didn't get something out of it or they didn't get something out of it, you should have both. So those are some of the additional metrics that I've added to my team. Now it stresses them out when they first start. They're like, oh my God, why are you asking all these questions? But what it does is it strengthens their programs and the ability to think beyond just the right here and right now. So then the goal for them isn't how many numbers I get, but like the actual impact on the back end.
And I think part of it, part of it is, a lot of these, the collaboration is organic.
Mm-hmm,
and it doesn't lead to something happening right now.
correct,
It may be 3 years from now.
correct.
And so sometimes the question, especially if you're not, we see some folks who don't understand the word of extension. We know that
Mhm.
across campus or wherever, legislators, whatever. But it is showing the value that I'm planting the seed right now.
Mm-hmm,
This is the reason I keep going back
yes,
and meeting with them. There's no productivity now, but 3 years from now, we may get what we need.
exactly.
So,
And you just have to be able to tell that story. I mean, that's our biggest hurdle in extension, right? Is to be able to tell our story to all of the people.
So we're gonna have time for about one more
Oh, I'm sorry.
question, but no, you're good, but here, a couple other comments from that question.
Yeah, on that, I want to talk a little about the evaluation, and there's two, I'm gonna put on my work graphic hat, yes. Two challenges to evaluations, you know, as I see it. One is, as I mentioned earlier, we're 25% smaller than we were 25 years ago, but our community still has an expectation for us to do the same damn
Yeah,
thing we were
real
doing
fact.
50 years ago.
Real fact.
When we weren't doing social media, when we weren't on LinkedIn, we weren't on Facebook, we didn't have all this technology stuff that we have to be doing on top of the expectation of doing what we were doing for when we had more staff. And so that's challenge number one.
Mhm.
We don't have time. We all, I mean, I'm saying that because I hear this from everybody and I practice it. I don't have time to do my evaluations. I don't have time to put in all my data, in all the metrics into my, my extension. I just don't have time to do it because I'm so busy making the donuts. Because there's a long line of people who want the donuts. So we don't have time, and this is a systematic problem of not just extension, but the extension is what we're talking about right now. American workers are working harder now than they were 50 years ago. We leave more paid vacation on the table unused annually than any industrial nation on the planet. That's only problem number one. Problem number two is we love what we do. And we want to be out there doing it. We don't want to be sitting at the office putting all this stuff into the computer because we're not doing what we love doing. And so I don't know how we solve this problem. We, in Missouri, we're struggling with it just like everybody else. And I'm guilty of sin about not liking doing that work. I want to be out. My favorite day of the week is when any day they ask me to talk about labor history. I get to go out there and teach in a classroom. Or sit at the office and put stuff in a database.
Well,
That's fun.
So the issue with not doing evaluation is you have to look long term. Is that you have to ask for funding and you have to give something that shows what you do makes an impact one way or the other. So whether we like it or not, we still have, it's what you do and how you do it. So we have to remember that evaluation is qualitative and quantitative. And qualitative is very hard to document and put it together. Quantitative is very easy. You count the beans and you put them all together and you can have a graph. So the success is that I found that works is that from the very get-go, you have some kind of mechanism that is putting that success stories, that quotes, that impact. So you're not end of the year struggling to put that data throughout the year, and sometimes your snippets adding it. So then that qualitative piece is your most valuable piece that you are putting together, and the numbers just keep transferring into a data system, whatever is available for
Can
you.
you give us an example?
So like in FNAP, you have webinars. So you throw all the numbers in there, but they also ask. So USDA is very big on this N peers now. You know, the national peers system
Yes.
has just started. So you record all the success stories. So for your county reporting, that the county reports to the feds, that you have those brackets of those four, you're supposed to put in that numbers in every quarter. And you have to put success stories and some impact. So you make a template, which makes it very easy for the person who's recording to make a very small template that says, you know, this was what, you know, what is the story about? 2 lines, you know, this was a small group of, you know, these people, we did whatever we did, we introduced this was the innovation, this was the project, and how did we make, and you know, what was the success? So did we go back and make this happen again, just to your thing, that wasn't repeated?
Yeah.
And again, the same template is used for the partnership. Did that partnership
Mhm.
is going on this year?
Mhm.
Is it the next year? Is it the following year? That means that is your measurement of success. That you have, your partnerships are growing despite the transition of the staff. Because we all know that when staff change in our partner agencies, it's like square one. You have to come back and start talking about rebuilding that relationship.
I think
But-
that would be good with the community vitality and community development. There is no template like that. It's hard to
And it's,
capture.
that's a
It
big,
is,
that's a
it's
big
the one
ex-
area that has a huge hole.
and that's a big expectation to put on agents. too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a big ask and they may or may not have that skill set.
Yeah.
The other key thing there too is to find those key, or those common evaluation like
Mhm.
questions. So it doesn't matter what you're teaching, but if you could ask these 3 or 4 questions consistently, then you have a better picture overall. So each program, this is a conversation I've had with my A&R agent pretty frequently, is if you can find like 3 or 4 big impact questions and make sure that those are on every evaluation unit. At the end of the year, you can talk about all these different things you did, but we can also say, here was a big impact.
And just jumping on that for a second, you are 5 wise people in the room. Out of this event right now, could somebody send the lowly people? I'm not even an agent. I am the county coordinator with my extension office. I'm still learning extension and all these pieces, but if somebody could send us that template that you just described, and it sounds so simple to you all, but it's a foreign language.
So
No,
far,
so, see, for me, because that was something, evaluation was my minor in my PhD program.
yeah,
So I come with that skill
Right.
set
Yes,
for
That's
my,
something that's
my,
happening much
this,
easier.
all the counting. So
Those
you
aren't things that are.
you
being
know
done.
that at the end it's so valuable, you build it in the beginning, because
But
all funding. costs for
Exactly,
that.
but even short term, if anybody could give us a start
so
point.
some of them definitely already exist, but I would say that, like the social determinants for health, right? Like that's one of the easiest ones that I can think of off the top of my head that you can use to carry metrics across multiple program areas. And when I mean multiple program areas, I'm talking about ag, health, nutrition, community viability. That's something that you can use to track no matter who is doing the engaging piece, because there are very specific like questions and things that is looking for, and it's beyond kind of, oh, I took some kids here, or, oh, I met with, some farmers here, because these are things that we're thinking about, from a very high level, but programmatic, way to help our people in our communities, because at the end of the day, no matter how we divide our pie, we are all about our community's well-being at the end of the day.
So one of the things that I found very successful is you have a generic demographic, because then you know you're reaching the audience. It's not for any other purposes. I want to see that
It is.
it matches my
It is.
census, that the diversity that people in my community are reaching. And then you ask 3 simple questions based on today's, your interaction. What have you learned? Have you increased your knowledge? Have you increased your skills? And when you go back home and practice, with it. And if they say yes, it's 100%, you're asking generically 3 very basic questions. And they output it, you are reporting it, and if they report, they say, oh,
There are
I took my children for a walk.
Evaluation templates out there.
Yes. Is looking for opportunities for some of our folks in other portions of the university to then work with us on certain things. So for example, we have a public health institute at VSU, and I have a nutrition and health hub that we're getting off the ground. Well, we're looking at folks across the university to now be a part of this health hub, to look at how we work in the community and with our community partners. We all technically have community partners from being separate, but now we're looking at how do we do those things together, from a collaborative perspective, because we are aware that we just don't have enough people, to kind of do those things. We also have a working group that is looking at, some specific things. So for example, AI, for instance, we have a working group across the university.
Or even post-COVID, what happened in every community.
Yeah.
Have we studied that enough? No, there are so many needs that are still unmet, that are left there, that those researchers have not even touched yet. So there needs to be a
Diversity. Actually, the second one is now in the political science department with me, and also the other one is actually under the umbrella of the chancellor of the University of Missouri St. Louis, the community engagement specialist. So they're fully funded by extension, but they're working in the hierarchy at UMSL, where they're out in the community identifying needs as well and trying to pair them up with research and resources within the university and vice versa.
Yeah.
When we've got grad students who are trying to make connections for research they're doing, these people are in a position to help connect them with the community. And the most recent one, my position was created, this agreement, this MOA in 2014. The next one was
In a unique place in our state where we have funds, but we don't actually have positions, because we have to petition the state every other year to get position numbers. And so that significantly handicaps us. And so what we have been able to do is partner with Virginia Tech to have certain positions be on their payroll, but that we pay for. We have, NRCS that's providing position numbers that we're in an MOU with to be able to have people on our team that they have now provided this position number for. So when we're talking about partnerships and things like that, I mean, there's also those type of partnerships as well. And I know, like, at the university level, like, people get all stressed out, but there's a thing called an MOU.
Yes.
And you can create the terms in the MOU. I mean, we're running a pathology lab that belongs to the county. And, but creating the MOU allows.
So I have had a lot of congratulations from the students. They're the ones that I and then the end,
What's
Yes.
But they have to start.
No, I understand.
So they were saying.
And we try to be all things. We want to create.
Recently in the state of people, and you can manage our county.
So yeah, they, yeah.